Hello there and welcome back to my new video. So in this video I am going to introduce you with a Material 3 design system, explain you what it is, how it works, the difference between Material 2 and Material 3 design system, style, color, typography and component differences, but also how to apply it with Jetpack Compose as well. Now first let's start with the basics. So what is a design system anyway? A design system is a combination of rules, standards and reusable components that can be combined together in order to create and build any application. And the material design is a design system which is built and supported by Google, and one of the most useful resources for Material 3 design system is its official website, which is called material.io. And this website includes everything you need to know about Material Design 3, as well as the actual implementation for Android, Flutter and the web. Now, before we go into Android Studio and I show you a couple of different things, first we need to cover some basics and the foundation about Material 3. So first, let's start with the colors, right? Now, in Material 3 design system, there is a huge change when it comes to color system, right? From this image right here, you can see that with Material 3, we have a lot of more different colors in our actual color schema, right? And most of those colors are basically generated automatically by the algorithm itself. So even though the number of color parameters has increased, that doesn't mean that it's actually a bad thing, quite the opposite. Those new colors are more explanatory, and they allow us to create a more dynamic color theme within our application. There is also a new feature which is called the dynamic colors, which I'm going to talk about in some of the next videos actually, because that's a whole separate topic for now. Anyhow, with the Compose material number 2, we had a colors class, while with the Material 3 we have a color schema class instead. And from here, of course, you can see that we have actually changed this light colors from a Material 2 to a light color schema instead. So here it says that given the significant difference between M2 and M3 color systems, there is no reasonable mapping for color parameters. And instead we should use this Material Theme Builder tool to actually generate our own Material 3 design color schema, right? And I'm going to show you in a moment how to actually generate your own color schema for a Material 3 design system. And basically with that you will be able to generate all those different colors in your project based on the 3 main colors, right? Now here you can also see that with Material Design number 2 we had some color namings like primary variant, secondary and a surface or background, while with Material Theme 3 we have a primary, secondary, tertiary and a neutral. So those naming conventions are now a little bit different, which personally I do like. Okay, so let's just go to the official Material.io website so we can actually read some more things about the actual color schema in Material Design number 3. So here you can see that the main colors in Material 3 are primary, secondary and tertiary, right? So we only basically need those 3 main colors, and all other different variations of those 3 will be automatically generated by the algorithm itself. So the primary key color is mostly used for some key components, like for example floating action button, some prominent buttons, active states, and the tint of elevated surfaces. And this is also a new feature that comes with Material Design number 3. I'm going to talk about the elevation a little bit later, but keep watching this video because that's also an important thing to note. Next, the secondary color is mostly used for some components like for example filter chips and some other different components that are actually less prominent. And we also have this tertiary key color, which is used to derive the roles of contrasting accents that can be used to balance primary and secondary colors or bring heightened attention to an element. Down below we can also see some neutral colors, which are mostly used for surfaces and backgrounds. Then we have some additional colors in our Material 3, like for example the arrow colors, which are used to actually semantically describe errors in our application. And with material design number 3, we can also add our own custom colors as well. And here down below we can also see that basically each one of those primary colors or main colors like primary, secondary and tertiary will have basically a tonal color palette which consists of 13 different tones. The next thing related to colors, which is important in material design number 3, is the actual surface tones, right? So here it says that surfaces at elevation levels of 1 to 5 are tinted with color overlays based on the primary color, such as the app bar or menus. So I'm going to talk in details about the elevation a little bit later. But the main thing that you should note here is that most components now in material design number 3 are using elevation, but without the actual shadow. So the elevation basically is represented through a different tonal colors of the primary color, right? So for example, as you can see here, surface 1, so when we have an elevation of level 1 on a certain surface, for example, then the color of that surface will have a primary color, but with the opacity level of 5%, right? So down below we have another example when we are using an elevation of a level 2 in our components, then the actual color of that component will have a color of a primary, but with 8% of the opacity of that primary color, right? And down below we have some more examples. For example, when we are using an elevation of a level 3 on some surface, then that surface will have a primary color, but with the opacity level of 11%. And of course here we have that same thing, but only with 12% opacity of that primary color, with 4 and 5th level of elevation, right? Now, one more thing that I've mentioned earlier is that even though you can have your own core color schema, that doesn't mean that you cannot add some custom color of yours. Quite the opposite. You can add some custom colors to your project quite easily. So for example, if we add maybe a yellow, orange and a green color to our color schema in a design system number 3, then all other different variations of those 3 colors will be automatically generated by the algorithm itself as well. And this is how it will look like when we are having our core schema and we add some 3 new custom colors as well. And now let's open up the Android Studio and I'm going to show you how you can create a new project in a Jetpack Compose by using a material design number 3. So to create that project, you just need to go File, then New, and you need to select this empty compose activity material 3 template, right? So I have already created the project with that template, so I'm going to just skip this step, but be sure to select this option or a template from here. There you go. Now, whenever you create that project, there will be some changes that you're going to see. So the first change is within our Gradle build file. So you'll see that here now we will have a new dependency, material 3, right? So I don't know if you have noticed, but the material 3 compose has actually become stable recently, which means that we can use most of those material 3 components in our project using compose. So that's the main difference in that Gradle build file, of course. Now let's close that. Let's open up first our color file. So in this color file you will see a little bit different naming for those colors as well. So here we have a purple 80, purple gray 80, and those values here represents the actual tonal values, like we have seen already on our material.io. So let me just scroll that way here. So there you go. Those are the actual tonal values for our primary color, right? Okay, and now let's go to the theme Kotlin file, and here you will see that from now on we are using a new class with the material design 3, and that class is called the color scheme, right? So we are no longer using a colors class, and now we are using a color schema. And here of course you can specify and override some of those colors as well. And with this root composable function, there is also one difference that you should note about. So the main difference here is this dynamic color parameter. And you may have already heard that with a material 3 design system, there is also one feature that is called dynamic colors. And this dynamic color feature will basically allow you to apply a custom theme to your application based on the background image or a wallpaper on your smartphone device. I'm going to talk about this dynamic color feature in more details in some of the next videos. But nevertheless, as you can see here, first we are checking whether this value, this parameter is actually true, and whether we are using an API level of at least 31, because this dynamic color feature is not available on all API levels. Alright, so now the next thing I'm going to show you how you can generate your own color schema for a new material design number 3. So now let's open up that material.io website and let's add here a /theme/builder, right? So this is a web application which will allow us to generate our own custom theme for material 3. So here we have two options. We have a dynamic option, which is basically just using some custom background images to generate the color for our application. But like I said, I'm going to talk about dynamic colors feature in some of the next videos. For now, let's just select this custom option. And from here, as you can see, we have 4 main colors which we need to choose for our theme, right? So we have a primary, secondary, tertiary, and neutral as well. We have also an option to add some custom color of ours as well. For now, as you can see, you can just type here your own hex color code, and that's how you can modify and change basically those colors within this web application. And as you can see, as soon as you change those values, then a theme will be automatically applied in the background as well. Okay, there we go. So for example, that's our primary color. Let's just now choose maybe some secondary color. For example, like that, and this tertiary as well. Alright, there we go. So let's just close all of those dialogues. Perfect. We can, of course, add some custom colors here as well. For example, let's name this custom number 1, for example. And let's just apply here some color that we actually want for our application. For example, this one, right? And now, if you want to generate a full color schema, or a theme for your Jetpack Compose application, you can just press this export button, right? And from here you have a couple of different options to export this theme for a Jetpack Compose, for a traditional view system, for a Flutter, web, and material tokens as well. In this case, I'm going to just press this first option, so for a Jetpack Compose. I'm going to now extract this actual zip file, and then this zip file will contain those 2 files, like this color and a theme. So if we open up this color file, then we will see all those colors that were automatically generated by this application, right? So now I'm going to copy all those variables from here actually, and I'm going to paste them in our project right there. So let's just replace those colors here. There we go. Let's open up this theme file as well. I'm going to now copy those 2 variables. So as you can see, light color schema and a dark color schema. So basically that web application has generated all those colors for both a light and a dark theme, which is amazing. So we have specified only 4 or 5 colors, and all those other variants of those colors were automatically chosen by the algorithm itself. So let's just copy those 2 variables. Let's go to our project. Theme, and let's replace those 2 like that. Okay, there we go. Let's just replace those with dark colors, and here light colors as well. So as you can see, we have easily imported and implemented all those colors within our project. So for both a light and a dark theme, and their naming is also quite good, right? So we have MD, material design, theme, light primary, and we have of course generated on primary container, on primary container, secondary, and all other different variations of those main colors that we have specified here in this application. So it's quite easy to generate the actual theme for your whole project. There you go. Alright, so the next thing which I want to talk about is about typography. With the newest Material 3 the design system, we have some new naming conventions for our typography. So here we can see those differences. With our old Material Design number 2, we had some naming conventions like H1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. which honestly resembles to the web application. However, now we have a little bit different naming convention. So now we have a display, we have a heading or a headline, we have a title, we have a body, and we have a label. So each one of those categories contain 3 different values or variations, like a large, medium, and small, then a headline, large, medium, and small, a title, large, medium, and small, and so on and so on. So that's the main difference, of course. And here for this type, you can also check out and see the difference. So if you want to see the actual differences between text sizes for those typographies, then you can open up this official documentation. Here you can see, for example, a display large font contains a scale of a 57, then we have a display medium which has a size of a 45, then a display small of 36, then we have a label here, and so on and so on. Now, when we are talking about typography with a new material design number 3, you should also be familiar with the actual roles they actually have. So for example, the largest font scale in material design number 3 is called the display. And the display should be used mostly on larger screen sizes to present some important text or numerals. Then, for example, headlines should be used for some shorter and high emphasis text on smaller screens. Then we have titles that should be used with some medium emphasized text. Then we have a body, which should be used mostly for some body styles. And we have, of course, labels, which are used for some smaller texts in our application, for example, as a label within a button, right? So that will be all about the typography. The next thing, let's talk about the shapes. So there are also some differences between shapes in a material design 2 and 3. As you can see, in material 2 we had some small, medium, and large scales, and now with the newest material 3 we have extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large as well. So when we are talking about the shapes in a material 3, we need to know that there are actually 2 different shape families, rounded and cut, right? So there are also 7 different styles for those shapes, like the non, extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, and full. This is the complete category of those shapes in a material 3. And down below we can see which of those shape styles is used with which material components as well. So as you can see, we are no longer using basically any shape with lists with navigation bars, top tab bars, and so on. And down below you can see also which one of those shapes is used, for example, with cards, with chips, floating action buttons, and so on and so on. And the next thing which is quite important in material design number 3 is the elevation. So the biggest change in elevation with material 2 and 3 is displayed within this image right here. So with the newest material 3, now we have 2 types of elevations. We have a shadow elevation, which actually uses a shadow, and we have a tonal elevation, which uses just a different overlay of a color, right? So here we can see the difference between material 2 and 3 and its elevation. So here we have a light theme, and on the left side we have material 2, and on the right side we have material 3 with those same elevation levels. So here the first example shows a 0 dp, so without any elevation. In this case it's just a white color. However, with material 3 it's a color which is different from this background color, right? And this actually represents a primary color. Now with a different elevation level, for example 8, we can see that with material design number 2 we had just a simple shadow which was displayed behind this actual element. However, with material 3 we no longer use those shadows except in a couple of different cases. Instead we use those tonal color overlays. So for example, here as you can see now, when this elevation size increases, the actual color becomes more vibrant, right? So with a 16 dp elevation level, here we have a bigger shadow, and here we have a more vibrant color on material 3. And that same applies with the dark theme as well. So with material 3, the elevation is measured as the distance between components along the z-axis in a density-independent pixels. So here we have this first example, which shows how the surface looks like with the elevation of 1 dp. So this rectangle or surface right here contains an elevation of 1 dp, while this second one contains an elevation of 8 dp, right? And the only difference between them is not the shadow, it's the actual intensity of the color itself. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that we are no longer using shadows with material design number 3. There are shadows, but they are reserved actually for some components that are needed to actually differentiate them from the background. So here you can also see the example of how we have handled the elevation in a material design number 2, and here you can see how we are actually handling the elevation with the material design number 3. So instead of applying shadows by default to all levels, we should use the shadows only when required to create additional protection against a background or to encourage an interaction. So this is quite important to note for material 3 and elevation. Down below here you can also see the difference of how the actual top bar color is changing when we are actually scrolling this list. And the actual color of this top bar is changing because the elevation is also changing, which means that the color is changing. So that's how it works with the material design number 3. And down below we can also see some more examples as well. So here you can see that we can also use a shadow with our components, but that's an exception. For example, when we are actually using a background image on top of which we are adding those components. And down below here you can also see one quite beautiful example where we are showcasing how we are actually elevating this component when we are dragging that on the left side. So as you can see, whenever we drag this component on the left side, we are elevating that component and we are increasing its actual shadow, right? So those were some of the most important things I have noticed about the newest material design number 3. There are of course some other different changes which were introduced with this newest system. I would also suggest you to just go to this components section and basically check each and every component from this list right here, because there are some new changes that were introduced with the newest design system that are also applied to those same components. Now the last thing that I want to show you here about material design number 3 is with Figma. So as you can see now within a Figma, you can download the actual official material 3 design kit. So this is quite important for every developer and designer to check out, because here you can see the actual values like the sizing, spacing and everything else for each and every component, right? And if you're not proficient with Figma, then I highly suggest you to just check out my latest course and learn more about it. Anyhow, here you can also see a new page which is named components, and here we can see basically each and every component that is introduced with the newest material 3 design system. So for example, here we have floating action buttons. So from now on, with the newest material design system, we have 3 different or 4 different variations of a floating action button. So we have a small floating action buttons, and the size of this small button is 40 by 40. Then we have a regular floating action buttons, which has the size of 56. We have a larger floating action buttons, which contain the size of 96. And we have those extended floating action buttons as well. So they have the size or the actual width of 123 by 56. And of course here you can check out all other different components within this material design number 3. You can check out their sizes, spacings, colors and so on and so on. Alright, so that would be everything I wanted to share with you about this introduction video with material design number 3. Be sure to comment down below and like this video if you would like to see some more videos about material design number 3 in the Jetpack Compose. And I'll be sure to create some new videos explaining you some new features that were introduced with this newest design system as well. So for this video, that will be all.
I'm a legend when they